TV-95.com, and through that you can send email that would have your announcement, whatever you'd need for us to tell, and we'd be more than happy to do it.
We'll include that on the Ross Rhodes Report. And I'm Patrick Rhodes, again, attempting to sign off.
I'm Angela Ross. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Tales from the Panther Den. I'm your host, Donnie Burks, for this weekly show that we have, that we bring somebody from the past to talk about the Benton Panthers and their time with the Benton Panthers. We have a very special guest with us tonight, Mr. Rick Spivey, who was the quarterback for the 1977-78 state championship Benton Panther football team. And we'll be back in just a moment to talk to Rick about what it was like to be on that state championship.
All right, Arkansas, forget GM, forget Ford. At Diversified, we have employee pricing for everyone. Bring your pay stub, bring your light bill, bring your Arkansas driver's license, and you qualify. Down payments as low as $5.95, payments as low as $1.99. Everyone means everyone, from great credit to no credit. You qualify at Diversified.
Everybody rides is Diversified.
Welcome back to the Panther Den, where we have as our guest tonight Mr. Rick Spivey, who was the quarterback for the 1977-78 state championship season of the Benton Panthers. Rick, welcome to the Panther Den. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Donnie. I enjoy being here.
Good to have you. We're just going to start at the beginning, Rick. We're going to ask you, when did you start playing football?
I actually didn't start playing football till I was in the 7th grade.
Mm-hmm. You played in the 7th grade, so who did you play for? Was it the East Side Cougars or the West Side Bulldogs?
I was an East Side Cougar.
You was an East Side Cougar, huh? What was it like playing for the Cougars?
Well, that was the first organized football that I'd ever played, and just being a part of a team, first time I'd ever been a part of an athletic team such as a football team, and getting to know the teammates and being around all the guys, that was the best part of it.
Who was the coach for the East Side Cougars at the time?
His name was Don Laird. He was, again, it's been many years ago, but he was my first head coach.
He was your first head coach. Did you play quarterback then?
Yes, I did.
You did? Okay. And I'm sure you had some competition for that position, didn't you, with the Cougars?
Yes, one of the classmates, his name was Dane Steele. He was a quarterback also, and he actually ended up playing running back, I think, and I ended up with the quarterback position. But yes, he was also a quarterback when we got started.
Quarterback. Okay. So you played for the East Side Cougars before you moved into the high school, correct? If you'd like to call in and ask Rick a question about the season or anything like that, the number is 778-6677, and we'll be glad to take your call, and we'll direct the question to Rick Spivey. Rick, you went into the high school in 1975?
Yes.
Okay. Of course, both schools had come together then, the East Side Cougars and the West Side Bulldogs. What was that like for both schools to have just one team now instead of the two junior highs that were separated?
We actually, my freshman year, my 9th grade year at East Side, I think we won 4 or 5 ball games. But West Side had the team that year. They won 8 or 9. They were a real good ball team, and we played them the last game of the year, and they beat us, I think, 6-0. So we knew going into our sophomore year that we had the opportunity to have a bunch of good ball players when we all went together at the high school. And we kind of planned it from that point forward as we moved through our years, but we knew when we went together that we had the opportunity to have something special by the time we became seniors.
Well, who was the head coach at the time? I'll let you go ahead and answer.
Well, our sophomore year, my 10th grade year, Max Graham was our head coach. We had some other familiar names that were also assistants. Dwight Fott, who I'm sure everybody's aware of here in this area. Roger Burton, who still works for the Benton School Systems. Jerry Moore was the running back coach, quarterbacks coach. And then we had Coach Herron, who assisted with football, was really the head basketball coach at the time.
But he did assist with the program.
Yes.
When you guys came together and you were starting to be coached by Max Graham, what was that like being coached by Max Graham?
Coach Graham was really old school, I guess the best way to describe him. He was a disciplinarian. He expected a lot from you, but you knew that he would be there to support you in any way. But yes, I remember when I first showed up, first practice as a sophomore, he showed up in his hard hat. We went to practice, him with his hard hat on. So he expected a lot from you, but he also knew how to have you give everything you got once you got out on that field.
Of course, you guys were starting to get the program together in the fall of 1975, but then you really began to take off the following year in the fall of 1976, when I'm sure that there was some talk probably at that time about trying to go for a state championship at some point.
Well, we talked about it every year. Again, when we got together as sophomores and we saw the potential that we had, it was something that was always on our mind, and we built for that senior year, beginning probably more back in the freshman years when we were in junior high. And then coming together, we started talking about a state championship for our senior year.
For your senior year. Well, that particular season in the fall of 1976, you guys won 7 ball games and only lost 4. But I know one of the great games that you guys had was on October the 1st. It was a road game. It was at War Memorial Stadium, and you guys played Little Rock Catholic, and you defeated them 27-22. What was that like going into War Memorial Stadium?
Well, it was always a pleasure. Now, we were fortunate. We had Catholic on our schedule, so we got to go to War Memorial a couple of times. But always going and playing on the AstroTurf in Little Rock was a special event for, and it still is for anybody who gets the opportunity to go up there and play. We went into that game and had a good game. We did what we had to do, and it turned out we were on the positive end when it came down to the final score.
Well, I remember that year that you were selected by the Associated Press Player of the Week. What was that like?
That was an honor that really the whole team deserved, or at least the entire offense, because we had plays that we put in for particular games, and that one play I was just fortunate, or that game I was fortunate enough to have a couple plays that were highlighted toward my ability, and had backs that were leading the way and linemen that were leading the way. So it was a team effort, but I was proud of that particular week, and more proud of that we were able to get the win that
Well, who
night.
were some of the backs and linemen for that particular game? Do you remember?
Of course, Jeff Goff was a back. He was my age, but he went through every year as one of the main running backs in the backfield. He was always there and always a support for me, and it was always a lead blocker every time we went around the corner. Greg Avery was a fullback, and he was instrumental in several blocks on the outside that allowed me to be able to run and gain a few yards.
Well, I noticed as the season went on in 1976, with the conference season, you had a game between West Memphis where Benton came up on the short end of the stick 7-6. What was that like to lose to West Memphis 7-6?
I remember that game vividly because it was probably about 35 degrees and it rained the entire night. It was a very, very tough evening elements-wise, but yeah, we just didn't do what we had to do to come out on the winning end of that game. West Memphis had a good ball club, but we had a good ball club too. But you know, whenever you go on the road, you have to step it up a degree or two, and we weren't able to do it that night.
Well, do you remember, was Benton leading the game, or was West Memphis ahead and we just made 6 points, or do you remember what happened?
I do not recall exactly how it went down. It was a close game throughout the evening.
Well, the following week, the big ball game on November the 5th was at home at C.W. Lewis Stadium, where you guys were playing host to the Texarkana Razorbacks, and you won that ball game 15-14. As just like the week before was 7-6, you know, with West Memphis over Benton. What was that like, having that victory over Texarkana?
Well, that was a conference game, so that was very, very important. And you know, Texarkana, through the years, my years all the way up through now, has always been a strong program. So anytime you can defeat a program such as that, you've done well. And we went into that game, and we were prepared. Coach Graham had us ready to go, and we went out and were fortunate enough to come away with a victory.
I understand that in that ball game you got hurt.
Yes, I did. I think it was during the first half of the game. I broke my ankle, missed the rest of that game.
And who was the backup for you in there?
Actually, probably really wasn't the backup. Fred Swaim and I played about the same amount of time at quarterback. So Fred was more than prepared to come in at the time when I got injured.
Well, that last ball game of the season, Benton wins back in another conference game with Jacksonville,
Yes.
and that loss to Jacksonville prevented the Benton Panthers from going to the playoffs that year. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. That was an away game. What was it like playing at Jacksonville?
Well, again, unfortunately, I wasn't able to play in that game. I was there, of course, up in the press box. But, when you go on the road in a higher classification, such as Benton was playing in at that time, it's always a challenge. To play at their place is always a challenge in itself, not even considering the type of players they had. But they had a good ball club that year, and we just did not get it done, basically.
Well, we're going to take a station break, and when we come back, then we're going to talk about the 1977 state.
Prostate cancer is the second most common type of cancer found in American men. In 2005, there will be over 200,000 new cases of prostate cancer in the U.S. Although prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in men, the death rate is going down. Early detection is important. Men with close family members who have had prostate cancer are more likely to get it themselves. September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Schedule your screening today. This message brought to you by Saline Memorial Hospital.
When you think of the Thomas team, a lot of words come to mind. Words like service and know-how, teamwork and pride. You see, we've been here for a long time, being the best that we can be. For real estate or insurance, join the Thomas team. Join the Thomas team. Join the Thomas team.
Welcome back to the Panther Den. I'm your host, Donnie Burks, and my guest tonight is Rick Spivey, who is the quarterback for the 1977-78 state championship season of the Benton Panthers. And if you'd like to call in and ask a question to Rick, please feel free to do so. That number is 778-6677. Rick, if you notice, we got the big Pink Panther here with the state championship insignia on it there from the championship season. And also this Pink Panther is on display at the museum at the high school, you know. And it's got the signature, I think, of every one of the players that played for Benton that year. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, most of them faded off. There's a few you can still read, but yes, we all were able to sign the Pink Panther after that year, and that's something to be proud of.
Where did that Pink Panther come from? Not the theme or anything, but where did this Pink Panther come from?
That particular Panther, somebody here locally in town, I believe, donated it to us after the season, but sorry, don't know who it exactly came from.
Well, of course, the Pink Panther trademark had already been well underway by the time you guys got to the championship season, correct?
Yes, I'd actually started, I think I was a freshman over at Eastside, and from my recollection, it was something that Bryant came over and painted our front of our high school there with some pink paint, and it kind of picked up from that point, and we started playing the Pink Panther song at every home game, every touchdown, I believe, and it just kind of grew from there.
And it carried on for many years after you guys left the high school, didn't it? After the high school program.
Yes, it did. I think it went through Coach Fight's years, and I think you brought it back that one game at a reunion a year or two ago.
You guys,
so
yeah, brought it back.
That was nice to hear that.
Got Mr. Webb and them from the band's end of it play the Pink Panther theme song. In fact, that year, the first time he had the opportunity to play it was when we went to Lake Hamilton, and they was going to rehearse it out there, and when they came into the stadium that night, they played that Pink Panther theme song. That's the first time in a long time I'd heard it. Okay, now back to that 77 state championship season. The stage was really set, I guess, for you guys, with the support groups from the cheerleaders, the Pep Steppers, and of course the band, the fans. I think everybody felt like this was the year. Is that right?
I know the players did. You know, the year before, you talked about the year before, we'd won 7 games, but we missed out on the playoffs. So we came into my senior year, 1977, with one thing in our mind, and that was not only make the playoffs, but win the state championship. We had players that were dedicated to that really knew that was our goal, and they committed themselves to get prepared for it during the summer leading up to the August practices.
Okay. Speaking of that in the summer, what was that like, that summer practice, getting ready for this season?
It was really it's not like it is today, because they have pretty organized practices and get-togethers over there, I believe, listen to the way it happens now. But we were pretty much on our own. We showed up in groups over there to lift weights, throw out on the practice field, run through some plays out on the practice field. It was all on our own. We had no coaches out there with us. But from listening to coaches talk about that year, since then, we had probably more people involved prior to the August practices than probably any other team that had been through there.
Well, of course, the coaching staff was still, Max Graham was the head coach, and then you had Roger Burton, and then you had Dwight Fight, and then you had Lewis Pryor. Is that right?
Yes, Lewis Pryor was the new coach on the staff. As a matter of fact, that was his first year in coaching, was my senior year in high school.
What was his responsibility?
He was a quarterback running back coach. So
you kind of reported to Lewis, didn't you, to get
Yes.
to get your workout? What did Coach Fight do? What was his?
Coach Fight was the offensive coordinator, but he also coached the offensive linemen.
And Coach Burton.
Coach Burton was defensive backs and receivers, I believe.
Okay. So you guys, before the September 2nd game with Russellville, you guys already knew what you were destined to do. Is that right?
We sure knew what we wanted to do. We knew it would take a lot of work and a lot of sacrificing, but we were prepared to do it.
Of course, you came out on top with Russellville, handing it to Russellville 30-8. But then the following week, the Camden Panthers showed up at C.W. Lewis Stadium, and you tied Camden 22-22. It seems to be kind of like a little jinx there, because the year before you had lost to Camden, and then this year you tied Camden. Now this is the Camden Panthers, not the Camden Cardinals that they're playing today. Two different schools.
Two schools, and for some reason that Camden school was a nemesis to us. We, again, I went down there my junior year and were not able to come away with a victory. And then coming in our senior year, we had them here at home at C.W. Lewis Stadium, and we still had a hard time, and we struggled through, and probably were fortunate to get by with a tie that evening.
Yeah. Of course, then you moved on to play out a conference game. You played with Bryant, but then you went back and you played Hot Springs, and you defeated Hot Springs. This is the Hot Springs Trojans.
This is Hot Springs High School Trojans,
Right.
yes.
And this was Benton 12, Hot Springs 6. What was that like?
Now that was a conference game. It's a little bit different over at Hot Springs now, but that was one of our big rivals, as a matter of fact. That was I believe you said the third game of the year, fourth game of the year?
Fourth game.
Fourth game of the year. They had not been scored upon. Their defense had not given up a touchdown through the first three games. They were a very good ball club. They had several athletes that went on and signed and played college off of that team. But we went down there with, again, kind of a goal, had our mind set, and we ended up getting the ball game into overtime and scored in overtime. We had the ball first, we scored. They got the ball, we held them, and it was done. We walked out of there with one of probably the biggest victories at that time that Benton had ever had.
I'm sure Hot Springs turned the lights out when you guys left, didn't it?
Turned the lights out and turned the sprinklers on. Got us off the field as fast
They
as they
wanted
could.
you guys off the field real quick, didn't they? Okay, of course, then we go on to Little Rock Catholic, where you defeated them 26-13. Then you edged out Little Rock McClellan 21-20. Then, of course, you upended Little Rock Mills. You did the same thing to Sylvan Hills. Then you was able to really put it to West Memphis, and that was an out-of-conference game. Is that right?
That's correct.
You did it 42-27. What was that like?
The score was probably a little bit deceiving because it was a good ball game. They were playing here at C.W. Lewis Stadium in Benton, and it was a back-and-forth affair, and we scored a couple times late to really make that margin of victory look a lot better than it really was.
Than it was. Okay, now for the big game. Road trip, November 4th, down Interstate 30. You could probably sneeze and hit the Texas border. You guys were playing the Razorbacks down there at Texarkana. Conference opponents.
Correct.
The year before, you guys had defeated them here. Texarkana is able to come away with a 16-13 upset. That's what it was over the Benton Panthers. Now, what happened that night?
Well, again, they were a conference. You mentioned they were a conference opponent, and we went to their place. So there's an edge right off the bat when you go into someone else's home stadium. You've got to be prepared for a lot more than just a team. And we had situations that came up that that Coach Graham didn't agree with. He was very vocal in his disagreement at the time. But we actually got ourselves in a position to tie the game on a field goal right at the very end.
Right.
And if I recall, it was blocked. So we did leave there with a 3-point defeat, and I think it really prepared us for what came the next week or two after.
Right. Well, that was the only conference loss you had. In fact, that was the first game that season that you guys lost. Tied Camden, but the rest of the ball games, you know, you had defeated the opponent. All right, the last ball game, which was a deciding factor the year before on whether you was going to be able to go to the playoffs or not, the Jacksonville game, you guys were not allowed to go to the playoffs the year before because of the loss to Jacksonville. Then this year in '77, you guys took it to them here at C.W. Lewis Stadium, and you destroyed them, as I would say on the flashback, 44-23. Give us some background on that.
We knew going into that game that we had to win that game to be outright conference champions. It was just something that was a goal of ours all through the year, along with being in the state championship. But the first goal was to win the conference. We didn't want to share it with anybody. We wanted it outright. So we knew going into that game that we had to win that game. And we played hard. Jacksonville played good. They had a very good squad. And we were fortunate again to come out with a victory.
Well, at the end of that ball game, you guys at that point, I mean, you had double-digit scores through the entire season. You guys at that point, at the end of the regular season, had scored 321 points to your opponent's 141. Now, that's a great offensive-defensive program for the Benton Panthers.
And you would think, from our background, everybody talks about us. We were a running club. We might have threw the ball 4 or 5 times a game. For the most part, we were a running club, and we stuck to that. So scoring points, that told you how explosive our particular offense was, because we scored quickly, even running the ball.
Right. Okay, let's take a commercial break. And when we come back, we'll talk about Benton winning the state championship in Little Rock at War Memorial Stadium, and we'll be back after this moment.
UALR Benton is a place you want to be. A short commute, smaller class sizes, convenient parking, and UALR faculty all help make UALR Benton a more pleasant learning environment. Morning, afternoon, and evening classes are available, making your higher education a realistic goal. Fall classes begin August 22nd, so call now and start moving toward your future today. UALR Benton, a place you want to be.
For over 140 years, millions of Arkansans have enjoyed those wonderful products from Coleman Dairy. And it's a source of pride for the Coleman family.
They drank Coleman milk when they were sitting at the breakfast table when they were 2 or 3 years old, and now when they're in their teens or however old they might be, they're still drinking Coleman milk, and it still has the same quality and dependability that it did back when they were 2 or 3, and they can always depend on that.
Okay, back at the Panther Den with Rick Spivey, the quarterback for the 1977-78 state championship Benton Panthers. And we want to put this Central Conference Championship trophy out here. If you can see the top of it anyway. But this was the trophy that the Benton Panthers had won when they won the 4A Central after the defeat of Jacksonville. Is that when this trophy was presented to you guys, or?
I think it was presented after that game sometime during that week after the game. I can't remember exactly
but
what
you
it was.
did. But this was presented to the coaching staff and the players. Okay, then we go to the playoffs, and you guys were playing for the first time in a long time that I can remember, maybe going back to 1957. You guys were playing Jonesboro in the first round of the playoffs. You shut out Jonesboro 28-0. Of course, that was here at C.W. Lewis Stadium, where you had the advantage, like you said, hometown advantage and home field and this kind of thing. So, but then the following week, November 23rd, in Little Rock, Arkansas, at War Memorial Stadium, you guys were going for the state championship and going against Benton's second oldest rival, going back to 1933, the Conway Wampus Cats. There was many a ball games throughout many years that games were decided between Benton and Conway. And you guys just proved that there was no exception to the rule. So here you guys are going to Little Rock to play the Conway Wampus Cats. Give us some background. Refresh our memories.
We played Jonesboro that Friday night, won that playoff game, and then we had a short turnaround. I think we played the following Tuesday.
Was it Tuesday? Okay.
It was early in the week because it was Thanksgiving week. Of course, the town was excited. We were excited. Everything we had worked for, we'd put ourselves in a position to go out and hopefully accomplish that goal. Conway, you talked about the rivalry, but that particular year, they were undefeated. They went the entire year without losing a ball game. They were picked as the favorite going into that game.
I remember that. They were picked as the favorite, Conway was, over Benton. Did Conway score first, or do you remember, or did Benton score first? How did that come about?
I believe we scored first, and then they tied it up, and then we were able to score again, and actually we missed the extra point, so it was 13-7. I believe that's how it ended. Yeah,
it ended up being 13-7, and we've got the picture over at the museum where you guys are carrying Coach Max Graham off the football field, and how you got him up, I have no idea. There were some people over this weekend trying to figure out how you guys picked up Max Graham and got him off that football field. But I know that was a great victory for Benton. It was Benton's really second state championship. They won the state championship the first time in 1916, and they played a Little Rock school. And that was the first state championship. We even have that football with the picture over there at the museum. And you guys won the second state championship for the Benton Panthers. And you guys that year had a season of 11 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie. And you had scored a total of 362 points to your opponent's 148. Now, the closest season that comes to you guys in total number of wins is a 1989 season where they had 10 wins and 2 losses, but you guys still hold the record for the most consecutive wins. And if you hadn't lost to Texarkana, you'd have been 12. 12-1, and that would have definitely been a record. We're going to take a station break. When we come back, we're going to put the state championship trophy out here where you can get a better look at it. And then after that, we're going to have a special guest that Rick would like to introduce at that time. So we'll take a station break and be right back.
Retirement, as we know it, will soon be retired. How do we know? We're Allianz Life, the best at next.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I live the Army values. I will never
accept defeat.
I am the guardian of freedom
and the American way of life.
I am the Army National Guard.
Defend freedom. Visit 1-800-GO-GUARD.com today.
I am an American soldier.
I live the Army values. I will never
accept defeat.
I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough. I am the guardian of freedom
and the American way of life.
I am the Army National Guard.
Defend freedom. Visit 1-800-GO-GUARD.com today.
Back at the Panther Den here, we have sitting here in front of Rick and myself, we have the 1977-78 state. Briefly, right before we go on to our special guest, name some of the players who played on that 77 season that you can remember.
Well, I mentioned Jeff Goff a while ago. He was one of the main horses. He actually went on and had a real good career up at our University of Arkansas. But the rest of the backfield, our entire backfield was seniors. And we had Jerry Wilson at fullback, Ricky Norris and Jeff at the halfbacks. We had an entire offensive line made up of juniors. Doug Graham was one of them. Jerry McDavis was one of them. There were several on that line that were juniors. Steve Deere, who's still in town, Frank Henschels, who's still around. And in the defense, we had Scott Merrick, who was one of the leading tacklers at linebacker. Kevin Eubanks, who went on and played at the University of Arkansas, also was a part of that defense. We had a lot of seniors on that team, so we were prepared for that season.
You were prepared, and you guys accomplished a lot that year. You won the 4A Central Conference by defeating some great opponents, and then you went ahead and won the state championship. And both these trophies are on display at the museum at Benton Athletic Memorial Museum on the campus of Benton Senior High School. We also have the football over there that you guys used when you defeated the Conway Wampus Cats. We have that on display. We have the program, and we also have a picture of the entire squad. And You guys did a tremendous job. It was great for Benton. It was great for the Benton athletic program, for you guys to walk off with this state championship, to go against some great opponents. Great. I mean, every one of them was a great opponent for Benton, non-conference games included. So, but Rick has a special guest that he wants to introduce right now. It's probably going to be a future Benton Panther player. So, Coach Jones, if you're watching this telecast, you need to keep your eye on this gentleman, because I think he's ready to do some pouncing for you. So, Rick, who have we got here?
This is my son Cameron. He's a third grader here at Angie Grant Elementary here in town. And I'm sure Coach Jones has seen him, because every home game, if you hang around till the very end, you'll see this man and a bunch of his friends out there on the field after the game throwing that football all around. So he loves sports, and he plays all types of sports, and football's probably his favorite.
Is that right? Well, I wonder why. We're glad to have you on the show, Mr. Spivey. And I know that you'll do a credit to the Benton Panthers when you get old enough to play for the Benton Panthers, and Mom and Daddy be sitting up there in the stands, and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles and everybody else rooting you on, so that you can continue the great tradition of the Benton Panther program. Rick, it was great to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you, Donnie.
And join us next week when we will have as our guest former head coach of the Benton Panthers and former Benton Junior High Bulldog coach Tom Harden will be our guest next Monday night. The following week we will have Jimmy Powers. Jimmy Powers was the first band director at Benton High School, and we're going to really find out what Jimmy had to do to put the Benton Panther band program together. So please be sure to mark that on your calendar. And then the following week we're going to have Kathy Pelton on the show. She's the wife of Jackie Pelton. Back in school, she was Kathy McAdoo. And Kathy served as Benton Junior High Bulldog cheerleader, and she had also served as a Benton Panther cheerleader. So we'll be looking forward to having Kathy on here. But next week we'll have Coach Harden, and the following week Jimmy Powers, and then the week after that Kathy Pelton. So glad you could join us here at the Panther Den for more Panther Tales. We'd like to have these people come in and talk about the tales of days gone by. So join us next week from the Panther Den. And I'm your host, Donnie Burke, saying good night.